At 2 in the morning, I got up to get a glass of water. My knee had been bothering me for weeks and I couldn't sleep. I padded down the hallway in the dark, the way I had 1,000 times in that house. And that's when I heard her. Gloria was in the bathroom with the door pulled almost shut, voice low and careful. He's going to sign next week. And after that, the doctor said his heart isn't good. We won't have to wait long. I stood there in the hallway, didn't move. The glass in my hand was shaking a little. I steadied it against my leg and just listened. There was nothing else. She said goodbye and the call ended. I heard her set her phone on the sink counter. I walked back to the bedroom and lay down. Gloria came out a few minutes later. She got into bed like nothing had happened. I kept my eyes closed and my breathing steady. I did not sleep. My name is Earl Hadley. I'm 68 years old. I spent 40 years as a mechanical engineer at a steel plant in Pittsburgh, and I thought I knew how to read a situation. Turns out, when it's happening inside your own house, you stop reading. Beverly, my first wife, passed 11 years ago, pancreatic cancer. We had 28 years together, 2 kids. Nadine is 42 now and lives 20 minutes from me. Howard Jr. is 38, works as an electrician in Bethel Park. After Beverly, I didn't think I'd remarry. I was 57, retired, and I figured that chapter was done. But grief has a way of making you reach for warmth when you find it. 2 years after Beverly, I met Gloria at a community fundraiser. She was 45, warm, easy to talk to, and she made me feel like I wasn't just a man waiting out the clock. We got married 9 months after we met. That was 9 years ago. I want to be honest about something because it matters to the rest of this story. I trusted Gloria completely, not because I was naive, because I had chosen to. After losing Beverly, you don't give that kind of trust easily. When you finally do, you go all the way. I had handed Gloria the keys to my life and told her I was glad she was there. That's what made what she did so hard to sit with. For the first few years, things were fine. We traveled. She got along well enough with Nadine and Howard Jr., though there was always a little distance there that I chalked up to the kids still grieving their mother. I didn't push it, but about a year ago, things started to shift. Small things first. Gloria's brother Floyd started coming around more often. Floyd had a business card that said financial consultant and a way of talking about money like he already knew where yours was going. He'd been in and out of our lives since the wedding, but suddenly he was dropping by on weekday afternoons, staying for dinner, asking questions about my pension, my 401k, the life insurance policy Beverly and I had set up years back. I told myself he was just being thorough. When Gloria suggested I replace the financial advisor I'd used for 20 years with someone more current, I didn't fight it. The new guy turned out to be one of Floyd's associates. I noticed that. I didn't say anything. Then came the paperwork. One evening in September, Gloria put a stack of documents on the kitchen table. New will, power of attorney, healthcare directive. She sat across from me with a cup of coffee and said the estate attorney had explained it was the smart move given my heart condition. Just getting things in order, she said, for both of us. I looked at the first page. Her name was everywhere. Nadine and Howard Jr. were not on any of it. I told her I'd look it over. She left the papers on the table and went to watch TV. I sat there for a while, then put them in a kitchen drawer and went to bed. That night, she handed me a small white pill with a glass of water, said it was something the doctor had recommended for sleep. I took it. I had been taking it every night for about 6 weeks by then. I never thought much about it. Until October 12th. Until the hallway. Until that voice through the almost shut door. By 4 in the morning, I had gone over the last 9 months in my head and found the shape of what had been building. Floyd replacing my financial advisor, the new will cutting out my kids, the pills every night. Gloria calling my cardiologist's office twice, which she'd mentioned casually in passing as just checking in on my behalf. I had been too comfortable, too willing to believe that the people in my house were on my side. At 5 in the morning, I got up quietly, went to the garage, and sat at my old workbench. It was cold out there, but I didn't care. That workbench was where I had figured out every serious problem in my adult life. I found a spiral notebook, the kind I used for equipment maintenance logs at the plant, and I drew 3 columns across the top of the first page. What I know for certain. What I don't know yet, what I can do. I wrote for close to an hour. When I set the pen down, the shape of the problem was clear, and I knew exactly who to call. Clifford Marsh had been a family law attorney in Pittsburgh for 31 years before he retired. We had been friends since our kids played Little League together, back when Nadine was 9 and his daughter was 8. I hadn't talked to him in months. I called him at 9 in the morning from a payphone at the gas station 4 blocks from the house. I told him I needed to meet privately and that he shouldn't call the house phone or my cell. There was a pause, then he said, "I can see you tomorrow. Come to the house." That afternoon, I did one more thing. The pill Gloria had left on the nightstand that morning, I didn't take it. I sealed it in a small plastic bag and put it in my jacket pocket. When she handed me a new one that evening with a glass of water and a kiss on the cheek, I palmed it and sealed that one too. I had 2 pills. I needed to know what was in them. Clifford's house was a brick 2-story on Greenfield Avenue, the same house he'd lived in for 35 years. His wife let me in and pointed me toward the back office without asking questions. Clifford was already at his desk with a yellow legal pad and 2 cups of coffee. I sat down and laid it out from the beginning. The financial advisor swap, Floyd's visits, the will with Nadine and Howard Jr. cut out, the pills every night. The phone call through the bathroom door. I talked for about 25 minutes straight. Clifford didn't interrupt once. When I finished, he set down his pen and looked at me for a moment. "What you're describing has a name," he said. "Undue influence. And the medication piece, if that pill is not what she says it is, that's elder financial abuse under Pennsylvania law, possibly criminal." He told me what to do and in what order. First, get legal representation on paper immediately. Second, see my primary care doctor alone and request a full blood panel and a cognitive evaluation to create a formal record that I was of sound mind and had not requested any sedative prescription. Third, document everything I could remember with dates and specific language. Fourth, and this was the part that surprised me, be patient. Don't confront. Don't tip her off. Build the foundation first so that when the time came, nothing they said could touch it. I walked out with a signed representation agreement folded in my coat pocket. The blood panel results came back 5 days later. I was sitting in Dr. Harriet Reeves' office when she read them to me. My blood showed traces of lorazepam. I had not been prescribed lorazepam. I had never taken it before in my life. I remember sitting very still in that chair. Dr. Reeves was talking, but I stopped hearing the words for a moment. I just sat there with that information settling into me like cold water. Lorazepam at low doses. Clifford had explained what that meant before I even had the results. It would not knock a person out. It would keep them slow. Compliant? A little foggy, easy to walk toward a signature without them pushing back too hard. Easy to manage. Every night for 6 weeks, a kiss on the cheek and a glass of water. I called Clifford from the parking lot. His voice was steady. "That's the proof," he said. "That's the point where this stops being a suspicion and starts being a case." He sent both pills I had saved to an independent pharmacist he trusted. The written analysis came back confirming lorazepam in both. The pill bottle on my nightstand said the prescription was issued by a Dr. Philip Crane. Clifford called that office directly. Dr. Crane had no record of me as a patient. The pharmacy label was fabricated. Over the next 3 weeks, the rest of the case came together piece by piece. My cardiologist, Dr. Leonard Pruitt, confirmed that Gloria had called his office twice in the past 4 months asking about the expected progression of my heart disease. She had described herself as my primary caregiver and asked specifically whether cognitive decline was common with my diagnosis. Dr. Pruitt had known me for 9 years. He told me he had found the calls unusual but hadn't known they were unauthorized. He documented both calls and signed a written statement confirming my full cognitive clarity at every recent appointment. Dr. Reeves created a formal record on her end as well. No sleep medication had ever been prescribed by her practice or referred to another provider on my behalf. I used my neighbor Sylvia Norwood's phone twice to make calls Gloria would not see. Sylvia was 70 years old, had lived next door for 22 years, and asked no unnecessary questions. She handed me her phone, went back to her kitchen, and left me on the porch. I called Nadine and told her what was happening. She drove over the next afternoon. We sat in the living room, the 3 of us, Gloria included, and talked about nothing in particular. A normal visit. 3 days later, Nadine came back with Howard Jr. In that second visit, Floyd stopped by unannounced, the way he had been doing for months. Over coffee at the kitchen table, he made a comment about the pension rollover timeline. He said something about Q1 being cleaner for the transfer. He said it the way people say things they've already decided, like he was just filling in a detail on a plan that had been finished for a while. Nadine texted me that night, "Dad," I recorded it on my phone. The whole conversation, Pennsylvania is a one-party consent state. The recording was legal. I want to say something here because I think it's important. At no point during any of this did I feel like I was winning something. I felt like a man going through a house after a flood, checking which walls were still standing and which ones had already come down. There was no satisfaction in it. There was just work that needed to be done. What kept me steady was the workbench in the garage. Every time I needed to think, I went out there. It was cold in November, but I kept a small electric heater out there from years back. I'd sit on the stool, look at the tools on the pegboard that Beverly had helped me organize back in 1987, and I'd go through the list. What I knew, what I still needed. What came next? Beverly had been methodical the same way I was. She kept a household binder with tabs for every category: insurance, repairs, medical records, school schedules. When she got sick, she kept a binder for that too. Treatments, appointments, questions for the doctors. She faced the hardest thing either of us had ever been through, and she faced it organized and clear-eyed. I thought about that a lot during those weeks. She hadn't raised her voice or made threats. She had just kept her records straight and her head clear and done the next right thing. I figured I could do the same. Then I set the trap. I told Gloria one evening that I was ready to look at the will again, that I understood she had been patient and I didn't want to keep dragging it out. She looked relieved in a way she couldn't quite hide. She called Floyd that same evening. 2 days later, they both came over and sat across from me in the living room. The documents laid out on the coffee table between us. I asked questions. Slow and careful and ordinary, Floyd did most of the talking. He walked me through the pension transfer structure, the beneficiary designations, the healthcare directive language. He used the phrase "once things are settled" 3 separate times. He mentioned the house valuation. He talked about keeping the assets within the family unit as the cleanest outcome for everyone. I had my phone recording the entire conversation from my shirt pocket. At the end, I told him I needed one more day to read through everything carefully. They left with the papers and the clear impression that the signature was 24 hours away. I watched their car pull out of the driveway from the front window. Then I called Clifford and told him we were ready to move. The following morning, Clifford filed a police report with the Allegheny County Sheriff's Office documenting suspected elder financial abuse and unauthorized administration of a controlled substance. The same day, he submitted a formal referral to Pennsylvania's Adult Protective Services. He also contacted a senior investigator at APS directly to flag the medication evidence as the priority item. Then he sent a meeting request to Gloria and Floyd's attorney, a man named Terrence Bale, framing it as a mediated discussion to avoid prolonged legal proceedings. Clifford worded it carefully. He said there were documentation concerns that needed to be addressed before any further action was taken, and that a private meeting would be in everyone's interest. Bale called back within the hour and agreed to Tuesday morning. They arrived together. Floyd wore a jacket I had seen him wear to funerals. Gloria's hair was done the way she did it for occasions. Bale was a trim man in his 50s who carried a leather portfolio and sat down with the quiet confidence of someone who had been in these rooms before and expected to walk out ahead. Clifford did not start with pleasantries. He placed a single sheet of paper on the table in front of Bale. It was the pharmacist's written analysis. He didn't explain it, he just let them read. Bale looked at it for about 30 seconds. He said the analysis was based on a pill taken from a private residence with no established chain of custody. Clifford placed a second document on the table, the pharmacy records showing that no such prescription existed. The pill bottle label named a Dr. Philip Crane as the prescribing physician. Dr. Crane had no record of Earl Hadley as a patient. The pharmacy listed on the label had no record of the prescription being filled. He placed a third document down, Dr. Pruitt's written statement documenting Gloria's 2 unauthorized calls to his office, her description of herself as primary caregiver, and her specific inquiry about the timeline of cognitive decline. Then the formal police report dated 3 weeks earlier. Then the APS referral and the preliminary findings from their investigator. Then Clifford opened his laptop, set it on the table, and played 4 minutes of audio. Floyd's voice, clear and unhurried, talking about pension transfer timelines and house valuations and keeping assets within the family unit. Recorded in my own living room, 8 days prior. The room went very quiet. Bale leaned over and spoke quietly to Floyd. Floyd was looking at the table. Gloria was looking at me. It was the first time in a long time she looked at me without anything behind her eyes except something that might have been fear. She said, "Earl, I was trying to take care of you. That is all this ever was." I had thought about what I would say if she said something like that. I had gone through it a few times in the garage at night. I kept it simple. "You were counting the days," I said. "That's not the same thing." She looked down at her hands. Floyd's attorney asked for a recess to consult with his client. Clifford granted 15 minutes. In the hallway, Clifford stood next to me and said quietly that things had gone about as well as they could have gone. I nodded. I was thinking about the workbench, about the 3 columns in the spiral notebook, about how far the thing had come from a hallway at 2 in the morning with a glass of water shaking in my hand. The legal process after that took months, it always does, but the structure was solid, and it moved forward the way Clifford had said it would. Adult Protective Services completed their investigation in January and issued a formal finding of financial exploitation and unauthorized medication management against both Gloria and Floyd. That finding goes into a state registry. It follows a person into any future proceedings involving vulnerable adults. It is permanent. In March, the district attorney filed criminal charges against Floyd Morrow. elder financial exploitation under Pennsylvania statute, and fraud related to the preparation and presentation of unauthorized legal documents. Both were felony charges. Gloria was not charged criminally. The medication evidence was strong, but the direct link between her handing me the pills and knowing intent to harm was harder to establish beyond reasonable doubt. The DA declined to prosecute that piece as a criminal matter, but she was named as a respondent in the APS civil finding, and Clifford filed a civil suit on my behalf against both of them for financial manipulation, emotional damages, and legal costs. Floyd's attorney contacted Clifford in April about a settlement. Floyd did not want a trial. A trial meant testimony, and testimony meant the pharmacy records, and the audio recording, and Dr. Pruitt's sworn statement all read aloud in a public courtroom. It meant his name in a newspaper. I took 24 hours to think about it. I sat at the workbench that evening and went through it the same way I had gone through everything else. What I wanted out of this? What a settlement would give me and what it would take away. I called Clifford the next morning and told him we were not settling. I wanted the public record. I wanted his name attached to what he had done in a place that could not be quietly papered over. Clifford said he understood. He said we had a strong case and that he was ready to take it to trial if I was. I was. The trial was scheduled for June. In the weeks before, Gloria moved her things out of the house. She did it on a Thursday while I was at Clifford's office, going over testimony preparation. When I got home, her closet was empty and the bathroom counter had a blank space where her things had been. I stood in the doorway of the bedroom for a moment. Then I went to the garage and sat on the stool and just let it be quiet for a while. There was grief in it. I want to be straight about that. Not for what Gloria had tried to do, but for the 9 years I had believed something that wasn't true. For the mornings I had handed her my coffee cup to refill without thinking twice. For the way I had let myself need someone again after Beverly and how badly that trust had been placed. I sat there until it got dark. Then I went inside and made dinner. The trial ran 3 days in the second week of June. I testified on the afternoon of the second day. I wore the same dress shirt I had worn to Beverly's memorial service 11 years earlier. Nadine had pressed it for me that morning without me asking. Howard Jr. drove up from Bethel Park and sat in the gallery with her. I saw them when I walked in. They both nodded. That was enough. The prosecutor was a woman named Mildred Diaz. She was methodical and unhurried, the kind of person who does not waste a question. She asked me to describe the night of October 12th in my own words. I described it. The hallway, the dark, the cold floor under my feet, Gloria's voice through the almost shut door, the glass in my hand starting to shake and me pressing it against my leg to steady it. She asked me to describe what I had done the following morning. I described the garage, the workbench, the spiral notebook, the 3 columns. She asked me to read the column headers aloud. I did. She asked me how I had felt when Dr. Reeves read me the blood panel results. I thought about that for a second. I said I had felt like a man who had just found out the floor he had been standing on for 9 years was not as solid as he had believed. She nodded and moved to the next question. Floyd's attorney tried on cross-examination to suggest that the hallway conversation could have been misinterpreted, that a man with a heart condition waking in the middle of the night might confuse the details of something heard through a closed door. He asked whether I had been taking medication that evening. I said I had not taken the pill left on my nightstand that night. He asked how I could be certain of what I heard. I told him I had spent 40 years in a steel plant reading equipment under noise and pressure, and I knew the difference between mishearing something and hearing something I did not want to be true. He had no follow-up to that. The jury deliberated for just under 8 hours across 2 days. They came back on a Thursday afternoon. Guilty on the primary charge of elder financial exploitation. Guilty on the fraud charge related to the preparation and presentation of unauthorized legal documents. I sat with that for a moment after the foreperson read it, not triumphant, not relieved exactly, just still. The way you feel after a long job is finally finished and the machine is running right and you can step back and know the work was done correctly. Floyd was sentenced to 16 months in a minimum security facility, 3 years of probation and full restitution. He lost his financial consulting certification. His appeal failed 4 months later. I saw Gloria briefly in the courthouse hallway after the civil settlement was finalized in the fall. She looked like someone who had been through something hard and had not come out the other side yet. She said she hoped I felt like I had gotten what I wanted. I told her I had gotten what was mine. That was all I had ever wanted. She walked away. I watched her go through the courthouse doors. Then I walked to my truck, sat in the driver's seat for a few minutes, and looked at nothing in particular. After a while, I started the engine and drove home. That weekend, I painted the garage. Took me 3 full days. The walls needed it and the work felt right. Something to do with my hands. Something that would look better when it was finished. Clifford drafted a new independent will the following month. Nadine and Howard Jr. listed clearly protected through a court-appointed trustee. The pension, the house, the accounts Beverly and I had built across 28 years, all of it going where it was always supposed to go. Nadine and Howard Jr. come over most Sundays now. We eat, we watch whatever game is on, and we talk the way families talk when there's nothing being managed or performed. It took a while to get back to that, but we got there. I put Beverly's photo back on the mantle. Gloria had moved it to the bedroom closet about 2 years into the marriage, said it made the living room feel heavy. It does not make the room feel heavy. It makes it feel like the room I actually live in. I started a free Saturday class at the Pittsburgh Community Center. Basic mechanical skills, small engine maintenance, that kind of thing. We get 8 to 12 guys most weeks. A few of them are around my age. A few are half my age. All of them show up wanting to learn something real. That is enough for me. Here's what I want to say to you directly, and I'm going to say it plain. If you're a man who has been through loss and came out the other side and built something, a house, a pension, a life, and someone in that life is suddenly very interested in the paperwork, pay attention. If a pill appears on your nightstand that you did not ask your doctor about, ask your doctor about it. If a financial advisor you did not choose shows up and starts talking about timelines, call the advisor you picked yourself. You do not have to be confrontational. You do not have to accuse anyone of anything. You just have to do what I did at that workbench. Write it down. Get your own attorney. See your doctor alone. Build the record before you need it. You spent your working years solving problems with your hands and your head. This is the same thing. The stakes are just higher, and the tools are different. Do not wait until the papers are already on the table.